Welcome back to the shop, everyone. This week's video takes place in 2022 week 48, which is November 28th to December 4th. When we left our last video, I was doing the passenger side engine plate. I had the template done. Obviously, I did the driver's side off camera because here I am pulling the heater box out of the car. And I don't think I have any video of me doing the driver's side, but you know, most of it was done off camera while I was designing in CAD. You saw some of the cardboard stuff, so you did already see it. You just didn't get to see that side, and I'm sorry. I'll try and be better. So there you saw me pulling the heater box out of the car, and here I am just making a little bit of room on the bench so that we can actually put it on, so we can put the heater box on the bench. So I've pulled the heater box off of this plate, and what I'm doing is I'm marking out where the studs actually are in relation to the plate. And here I am taking some measurements, and I got that arrow there with 4.5 inch because I want to add 4.5 inches to the left side of that. And I am, kind of drawing a rough line because I want to bring the bottom of the plate up, and I want it to kind of curve more around the trans tunnel, so that's why I'm doing that. And through the magic of TV, here we have a CAD template all cut out. So this was probably, 3 or 4 hours later of my time designing it and drawing it up. So I was just test fitting on the car. It worked just fine. So now I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup right before I open some presents, some boxes right before Christmas. Alright, so what we're opening up here is a package from Maven Performance, and those are some radlok bulkhead connectors and just some regular like power and ground bolt-on terminals. What I'm doing right here is I'm cutting out the template for one of the radlok terminals, and that's a 4-gauge radlok. So I'm going to have a 4-gauge power wire going up to the front of the car. That'll be the alternator feedback as well as feed for the starter. And those are going to sit right under my bulkhead connector there. So I got both templates cut out, and I'm just kind of getting them into place. Yeah, use a bit of tape to hold them on there, and then what I'll do is I will get a center punch, and I will punch out the mounting holes, both where the mounting screws / nuts are going to go, and the actual big circle in the middle for the connector to go through. Now that I have everything center punched, I can actually start drilling out all of the holes. And for the middle holes, where the actual connector is going to come through, I'm just going to go grab my my step bit and drill out to, I forget what size it was, might have been like 9/16 or something like that. Whatever the size is, if you order these from Maven Performance, it is on the template. It'll tell you exactly what size you need to drill it out to. Just using a file, just kind of deburr it a little bit, make it a little bit cleaner. Getting a shot from the inside. I'm just going to clean up all of those holes from the drill just to make it a little bit cleaner, and then I'm going to start trying to put the first connector in. So that's what it looks like from this side. There's that little red tab on the top. You push that down and this side of the connector pulls off, and that's how it disconnects. So I'll be able to disconnect that, put the wire in there, crimp it. And on this side, it is just a stud. So I will be able to put a regular wire lug on there, crimp it on, and I can have I can have multiple connections on this side, which will be useful. I'll be able to run the ground for the fans from here. I'll be able to run the ground to the engine from here. So it'll be really nice. But if you notice, there's the little hump right under the connector, and that is going to have to be modified so that this cable can sit in there a little nicer. I don't know if I'm going to cut it out yet, or if I'll just, you know, take a big hammer and hammer it out a bit, but we'll figure that out. So some of the old seam sealer was getting in the way, so just taking a screwdriver, just kind of pry it out of there as best I can. So both connectors are the same, quick disconnect on the inside and then a stud on this side. It's always hard getting hardware like this in here with just one person, because you got to try and get it started just enough that it's not pushing the hardware back through. But you know, I got it done. It's installed. I'm happy with it. Me in my natural habitat, thinking about what to do without doing anything. And now we're going to move back over to the bench, and we are going to open our next box. And this box comes from Summit Racing. They always send a ton of stickers and a magazine or a parts brochure, and kind of sucks because it's just a waste. I don't need another parts brochure every time, but it is what it is. Today we got a alternator mount bracket. So this mount is odd because I can see tool marks on it, and on the bracket the tool marks go horizontal in one area and then they go vertical in another area, so it's just kind of odd. So I was just taking pictures of that and kind of checking it out. But now I'm going to label it and throw it on the shelf for later. So before we carry on, we are going to do a bit of cleanup because as it happens, everything is a mess and it's kind of driving me nuts. Okay, so now that we have some of the cleanup done in the shop, we can move on to the Holley input harness. So I'm not sure how much I've mentioned this, but on the Holley Dominator there's 5 or 6 connections, and each of those connections kind of have a specific function. So this one right here is an input harness, so it has a wideband O2 built into it. So on the Dominator you can have 2 O2 sensors, and this harness has the connection built on, and then I believe it accepts something like 24 more inputs or something like that. It's a fair amount. So I'm just going to kind of get that laid out in the car, and what I'm doing right now is I'm just grabbing one of my O2 sensors. And the reason why I need one of my O2 sensors is because I want to make sure that the harness is long enough to reach the O2 sensor. So that big connector there, that's the O2 connector, and what I've done is I've just roughly thrown the O2 sensor out into the car, and I want to make sure that it can reach the spot in the header where it needs to get installed into. Looking at this, I've got more than enough slack, so I can just get this all set up. I don't need all 24 inputs. I think I'm only going to be using like 5 or 6 of them maybe. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the O2 sensor back in the box. I know it's good to go. I'm not worried about it. And I'm going to start figuring out this harness. So I believe there is also a sensor ground output and a sensor 5-volt output and some stuff like that. Yeah, so I'm just gonna make a coffee here and get ready to go through all of my notes and figure out exactly which outputs I need. Yeah, so on the laptop there I've got the Dominator wiring up, and then I'm gonna go into the Holley, I forget what it is, but it's the Holley Dominator software where you can program your outputs, you can configure it all, you can configure the system, and I'm going to go through there. Actually, I've got the printouts from there. I don't have the Holley software on that laptop at this exact moment in time, but I do have the printouts of my inputs and my outputs. this time is reading documentation, or if I have questions, going and searching on the internet. I know one of the things that I had to search, may not have been at this point in time, but I did later, is how to have the Holly drive a speedometer. And that took quite a bit of research. Some of it was on camera, some of it was off camera, but it's all part of the process. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm just using that screwdriver to unlock all the pins, and then I'm pulling out the pins that I don't need. Like, I don't need a sensor 5-volt output, I don't need a sensor ground. This is an input harness. So I'm going to pull out the wires from the harness that I don't need. So I think these are some of the wires that come with the input harness, and so I'm just picking out some of the colors that I like for the functions that I have. So some of the inputs that I'm going to have on the Holly is I'm going to have the an input from my heater box. I'm going to have a heater from the trinary switch on the air conditioning dryer. I'm going to have an input for my line lock switch. I've got, what else do I have for inputs? Don't really remember. I would have to look it up. At this point I have a VSS speed input that has to come into this harness. And it looks like, that's it maybe? I don't know. Not that much. So I'm just getting those inputs put into the connector. It's very simple. All of those wires come with the terminal pre-connected, so it's literally just push it in, unlock the connector, push it in, relock the connector. Really, really simple. quick little puppy break. We got 47 in answer. And now we are going to do something that you have never seen me done before. This is going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity to watch this. I am going to tape up some wires. hope you enjoyed that once-in-a-lifetime opportunity of watching me tape up some wires, because now we're going to start laying out the input harness in the car now that everything is all taped up. You know, I think when I do my next car, I've learned so much that I'll be able to do this a lot quicker, I hope, because I'll plan all the circuits out a lot better ahead of time, and I'll run everything all at once instead of kind of piecemeal as I'm doing now. This worked, but it is a lot of effort, and a lot of this is a learning experience for me, so I'm okay with it, but I would like this to go a bit quicker if I ever do it again, and I would like to run everything kind of all in one shot if I can. I'm sure that even the next time I do this, there's going to be things that I mess up, there's going to be things that I have to redo, but that's part of building the car. But as we can see here, the O2 sensor harness is in perfect position. But what I'm going to show you is not in perfect position is this wire. I know that was really quick. It was longer when I filmed it. But one of those wires is like 1.5 inches to 2 inches too short. So I get to pull this input harness right back out and source up some longer wires. All that taping, all that effort was for nothing because I didn't make sure that the wire was long enough. So you had a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see me tape up this harness, and now you get a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see me take all the tape off and redo everything that I did. It was a lot of wasted time. So with that all undone, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through my pile of wires and find one that is longer that I can use. Fortunately, I've got a bunch of various Holley wires and harnesses that came, with the Dominator or in various kits. So I'm hoping that I should have a wire or two that is longer than what I had before and will suffice. So yeah, so I'm going to add those new inputs into the harness and tape it all back up and redo everything that you saw me already do. Round 2. it's the old measure twice, cut once adage, and I really should have done that. I should have confirmed and made sure that the wires were long enough to get where I needed them to go, and I didn't do that. So that is on me. I redid that because that's entirely on me, and you know, I hopefully won't make that mistake again in the future. So what I'm doing right now is I believe I am looking at my outputs, or I'm thinking about outputs here, because again, the outputs go on a completely separate connector. So I believe that's what I'm going to start working on. So hey, wouldn't you know, I'm just doing my best to make sure that I'm going to have enough wire to get everywhere I need to go with that wire. So the outputs that I'm going to have in this car are going to do things like turn on fan 1, turn on fan 2, enable my line lock, or turn on my line lock I should say. I'm going to have an output for a shift light. I'm going to have outputs for a caution and a warning light. What else am I going to have? I think that's the majority of the outputs I'm gonna have. So what I was doing when I was just looking in the car is I was looking at what color I have wired for my switches. I kind of like to do my best to have circuits kind of color coordinated, so if fan 1 is green on the trigger wire, my white and green wire is going to be the fan 1 trigger going to the front of the car. The wires don't know what color they are. The wires don't care what color they are. It carries, they just care about what size they are for the current that they're carrying. But I kind of like to have it more or less color coded as much as I can. Sometimes I don't have the color on the rack and I just have to pick something else to work because I don't really want to wait for like 3 or 4 days to keep going. So yeah, I'm pretty much just going to do the same thing with these output wires that I did with the inputs. I'm going to select the wires, put them in the harness, and then more than likely tape them up. Well, that is where we are going to end this video off, is with me finishing taping up the input harness. As always, if you have stuck around this long, I would like to thank you for viewing, and we'll catch you in the next episode.